Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to share with you my views on Game 6 of the World Championship match. Ding and Nepo are fighting in such a nice way, bringing us such a joy and creating the feeling that chess is having so much to give us, not the feeling that we experience in those matches between Carlsen and Karyakin and Carlsen and Caruana, when we somehow felt that chess was reaching a dead end and the draw was the big threat. But today we did experience something really different, and I want to share it with you and I want to give you my insights. So without further ado, let's jump into the game. Ding Liren plays as white, d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, and here is the first surprise, bishop f4. Today we see for the first time a London system in a World Championship match. A opening that wasn't considered so mainstream, as it doesn't attack the center, is not so principled, but with the help of some grandmasters, especially of course Magnus Carlsen, Gata Kamsky played it thousands of games, Maxim Dlugy and some others made it a really interesting opening. And Ding Liren chooses it today after c5, e3, knight c6, and knight bd2. C takes d4. This is a solid line. C takes d4, and bishop f5. We've reached the very famous pawn structure. After c3, e6, we are in the famous Carlsbad structure. This is a structure that it's a must know. We have to study it, and it's present in plenty of strategical manuals that they explain the plans for both sides. The most typical plan is the minority attack for black in this case. Normally we reach this from the Queen's Gambits, and I'll show it briefly. For example, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6. C takes d5, e takes d5, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, c6, bishop d3, castle, queen c2, knight bd7, knight f3, rook e8, castle, knight f8, and what I was explaining before, rook b1, with intention of playing b4 and b5 with a famous minority attack. Let's go back to the game. E6, bishop b5. Ding is not choosing the main line. Queen b3 is the most threatening, well, the most principal. And before in move 7, bishop b5 is a really interesting line that tries to continue with c4, knight e5, queen a4. Is really threatening. But okay, for sure Nepo actually knew how to handle it, and Nepo Ding goes for a more ambitious approach, avoiding his opponent's preparation. E6, bishop b5, bishop d6, bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, castle, castle, and rook e1. Okay, the e5 point is an important square for white, and now knight e5 is being prepared. Another idea that can be important is to try to chase this bishop with knight h4. Okay, for this reason h6 seems like a sensible move. Knight a5, and now knight e7, and somewhat uncomfortable move, but white was trying to capture on c6. For example, after, let's say, knight d7, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and perhaps b4, trying to leave it as a weak pawn. Another interesting line here was when I play bishop takes c6, knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes e6, and now in this structure the white knight will be super well placed on d4, a dark square, and the light square bishop can't do anything to get it from the center. So okay, that was the threats, and Nepo preferred to withdraw with the knight. a4, and this is an important moment. At the press conference, they asked Nepo what was wrong with the game, and he said he played the worst game of his life, but didn't explain what was wrong. And here I think he could have improved by not playing a6. For example, I like queen c7 followed by knight c8 and knight d6. And I think the knight would be doing really well on d6 because it controls c4, it controls e4, and sometimes helps with a6, b5. From d6, the knight would be controlling all these squares. And I think this can be a really nice improvement. After a6, bishop f1, now knight d7 was a blunder, a positional blunder, incredible, but true, perhaps it was much better to play queen b6 or even a5. a5, not to allow a5 from white. After knight d7, ding took on d7 and a5, and we have an incredible situation. Incredible because white is the one who is governing the chessboard, and there is very little black can do to stop him from improving. So, and this is something that you don't expect at such a high level. You think that this would happen at a FIDE master, at international master, or weaker grandmaster like myself, but you never expect it to happen at the top level, and it's incredible. Let's see how the game continued. Queen c7, queen f3, rook c8, queen a3, your rook a3, sorry. White is just preparing a possible b4. Yeah, because then c5, sorry, would be a strong square for the knight. But he can do it in the way he did it. Knight b3 first, knight c6, and now the problem is that knight c5 can't be played because black would take. So this explains why queen g3 is a way to try to chase the queen from this square. The queen went away. To e7, h4, gaining a space on the other flank. Rook e8, knight c5, and here we are. No, he is playing as if he was alone on the board. And e5. Finally, Nepo tries to create some counterplay, and just by doing it, he got outplayed. It's incredible. Rook b3. This forces the matters. It would have been equally effective before, and b5 at some moment would be really nice for white, attacking the knight that supports e5. But okay, rook b3 was fantastic because now he's taking on b7, and to stop it, black should play knight takes a5, rook takes a5, queen f6, and rook a3. So this trade, pawns trade, left white with a better pawn structure. d5 is really weak, and b7 can be in problems as well. So more or less, the game is more or less forced after this. Knight c4, sorry. Bishop takes c4, d takes c4, h5, trying to gain a tempo by attacking the bishop, bishop c2, and knight b7. So white gets a pawn in this way. Black will have some chances to regain it with queen b6, knight d6, rook takes e5, queen takes e5, queen b2, and rook a5. Okay, after all those forced moves, black plays king h7. The thing is that queen takes c3 looks more or less normal, but good lose on the spot with knight e8. Yes, threatening mate, and f6 leads nowhere because of simply queen e7, and there is no way to stop these mates. King h7, rook c5, attacking c4, f7 is also hanging, queen c1. This was a major mistake. Queen c3 still led to an unclear game. Queen c3 was way better. So after queen c1, king h2, now black didn't pick this pawn and thought it was a good idea because f7 couldn't fall, but f7 as we've seen wasn't such an important pawn. So f6, queen g3, and now the thing is that the c4 pawn is going to fall, and black king is so exposed, it perhaps seems that it can be defended with resources of the kind of queen g7, queen g5 at the proper moment, or rook g8, or what Nepo did, no? a5, knight takes c4, a4, and knight e3, cutting the queen from this diagonal, so he's not reaching g5 any longer. Bishop b1. Okay, it would have been perhaps more interesting to continue with a3, even though rook c7 and probably knight d5, king h8, and rook a3, and a7, sorry, and everything seems to be under control. Looks winning for white. But after bishop b1, rook c7, rook g8, knight d5 again, threatening knight f6. It's threatening a beautiful mate, for instance, a3, knight f6, king h8, and queen takes g7. Rook takes g7 and rook c8, followed by rook takes g8 mate. So after knight d5, king h8, rook a7, a3, knight a7, trying to dislodge this rook from g8, so g7 becomes weaker. Rook f8, and this is a fantastic position because there are several ways to win, okay, but in practice you have to find one. And Ding found a really subtle one. He played d5, something that apparently is just to the idea is just to push the pawn forward, but the idea is much more subtle, as you will see. After a2, he played queen c8. Now he's threatening knight g6, and doesn't seem to be an easy way to stop this one, because of course queen g5 could be answered with knight g6, bishop takes g6, and queen g7 checkmate. So after queen c7, Nepo answered with king h7, knight g6, threatening both the rook and g7, and after rook g8, this wonderful queen f7 forced Nepomniachtchi to resign. Why? Okay, he's simply threatening, you will see, after, for example, queen takes c3, he was threatening queen takes g8, king takes e8, rook a8 check, and after king f7, rook f8 checkmate, thanks to the pawn on d5. That deprives black king from going to e6. And this is very nice. This is really nice. There were several ways to win, and at move 40, when they reached time control, but d5 was a nice one. They found, okay, several. For example, rook b7 was the typical computer move that no one can understand it and doesn't look human at all, because it allows the pawn to go to queen. But after rook b8, now things get clear. This cannot be played because of mate on g8, queen g8, and after, for example, queen, rook takes f8, king h7, and the beautiful sacrifice, queen g6, bishop g6, h takes g6, checkmate. So rook b7 was a nice one, but of course not a human one. The one I liked the most and the most simple that seemed to me was queen d6. But okay, Dings was fantastic. d5, a2, queen c7, king h8, knight g6, rook g8, queen f7. Another variation that was important to make it happen, it was bishop takes g6, h takes g6, king h8, and after queen takes g8, king takes g8, and rook e8, checkmate. So a fantastic win by Ding Liren that levels the match again. Okay, so it was nice sharing my views with you. If you like the video, please remember and subscribe, and see you next time.